Explosions have been heard coming from the residential red zone. A Christchurch man has set off multiple charges and they've caused widespread damage to the land and may have affected the foundations of houses nearby. But don't panic, it's an EQC research exercise, the results of which could benefit homeowners rebuilding on damaged land.
Part of the residential red zone has been rattled and shaken by underground explosions buried underneath houses, simulating earthquakes and forcing up liquefaction from deep within the ground. It's all part of a multi-million-dollar experiment, masterminded by EQC and Tonkin and Taylor. The idea is to improve the country's understanding of what happens underground. Over the last few months, research has been ongoing in this Avonside neighbourhood into how earthquake-damaged land can be strengthened.
We've rammed stone aggregate stone into the ground, making many columns. We've mixed cement into the ground, both from the ground surface as well as underneath existing homes. And we're trying all these different ground improvement techniques, just trying to find cost-effective ways to improve the ground that is liquefaction prone.
Results from these field trials should help to create solutions for strengthening Christchurch's vulnerable land. This research has been ongoing for the last 4 months and won't be wrapping up until December. Cement's been pumped into holes drilled deep into the ground, creating horizontal beams along the length of the house.
And ultimately today we put a lot of explosives in the ground and then liquefied the ground, and then looked at, once the ground below the ground is liquefied, how well these ground improvements and the upper soils support the houses.
If the houses hold up with the concrete beams underneath, it could prove a solution for TC3 homeowners needing to rebuild on the damaged land. This aerial view shows the land before the charges were set off. It looks normal, much like any suburb in New Zealand. But after the explosions go off, it's not long before the dreaded liquefaction starts to bubble up from deep within the ground.
What we can see here is some of the ejected sand that's been flowing out of the ground with the water, formed the shape of volcanoes. You can see that subsequently the water has come out and washed some of that sand away.
To the untrained eye, this is just another reminder of the gunk that flowed up through the ground after the earthquakes. It symbolises the frustration that was experienced every time the ground shook. But to these scientists, it could provide answers to what's under the surface of the soil.
Now, the sand over here is of a more brown colour, and we know that those soil layers are around 3 metres depth, and so that is indicative of where that sand came from. As we look at the sand boil that's come up over here, the sand has come from lower down, about 4 to 5 metres depth, where we get these grey layers of sand.
The next step for these scientists is to study where the sand came from and the quantity that has risen up.
And also just seeing what has happened to the ground surface, how the ground surface has gone down, and the houses on top, how they've subsided as well after the soils have been liquefied.
It will take several months of analysis to work out whether the methods have worked, but if these tests prove successful, Cantabrians might be able to start rebuilding on earthquake-damaged land. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.